guest, and I'll get to him here in a moment. But before I do that, I wanted to give you a few quick recommendations or reminders about upcoming programming events that we are hosting here on campus as part of the Burgess Institute for Entrepreneurship Innovation. By the way, my name's Chris Sell. I work with the Burgess Institute team, and I'm pleased to collaborate with my colleagues on programs like Innovate State. Speaking of the programs that we run, one of them is called 2-Day Venture. Has anyone been to 2-Day Venture before? Excellent. Love it. So 2-Day Venture, we say it's like pickup basketball for entrepreneurs. You can join 2-Day Venture, register for it in advance, and you get to coalesce around problems, form teams with other students. You start on Friday at noon, and by Saturday evening, your team is pitching an idea to a panel of judges. You can win $500 if you're the winning team. And it's a great way to start thinking about ideation or ideas that could eventually make their way to the venture creation program at the Burgess Institute. And many of our most successful student startups can find their genesis at a 2-Day Venture. So we highly recommend that you participate in at least one before you graduate from MSU, no matter your major. It's just that high impact of a program. And so applications, you can still apply for a 2-Day Venture, and the next one this semester is taking place next weekend, Friday and Saturday. So go to eship.msu.edu to learn more about that program and register for it there. We are also hosting one more Innovate State yet this semester. In a couple weeks, David Powell will be coming to campus to share his story. And so like today, you can register online. It's free to attend, and we encourage you to join us here in the Entrepreneurship Lab for that Innovate State in just a couple weeks. We also are taking applications for the Burgess New Venture Challenge. Who has applied to the BNVC before? Anyone here? I know a few of you have. Go ahead, raise your hands. There you go. So Burgess New Venture Challenge is the flagship premium student pitch competition here at Michigan State University. And so we have a purse of $50,000-ish in prize money, grants that we can give to the top performing teams as part of that competition, and applications are live as of today. And they will be live until January 29th is the last date at which you can apply to be considered a participant in that competition. So we encourage you to get your applications in. It's a process online, and it's not very difficult at the beginning, right? So if you think you have an idea, you're working on an idea with the team, we encourage you to talk to our program if you have questions, but we want to get as many applications as possible. It's a wonderful event that takes place and culminates with a final pitch competition on Thursday, April 4th. So we're really looking forward to that event. We also have our Women in Entrepreneurship Student Club. They are also taking applications for their pitch competition that they host this fall. So if you are a member of that community and thinking about applying for that, applications are still being accepted for that program as well. I think that's about it for commercials for upcoming programming this fall. But again, any information you're looking to get about the Burgess Institute or entrepreneurship programming here at MSU, just go to eship.msu.edu. You can find all the information there. So without further ado, I'd just like to get to my guest, coming all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina. I first met Todd 7 years ago-ish. It was my first travel work-related event that I was doing in my role here at Michigan State. And I didn't really know what I was doing. And I met with a few other alums. The meetings didn't really go that well, mostly my fault. But then I met Todd, and I knew that he was our people, so to speak. And the colleagues I brought with me were thrilled that we had made that connection. Todd hadn't been back to campus yet since he had graduated in 1999. And I'm here actually to tell you today that he is back to campus today for the first time since he graduated back in 1999. So East Lansing looks different, campus looks different, and I'm so thrilled that we found this opportunity to bring him here. Todd's carved out a really impressive career, both in supply chain operations and now is kind of an healthcare innovation expert. Most recently, he's now been in a role as the VP of Enterprise Innovation for Advocate Health, formerly Atrium Health. So like I said before, he's traveled here from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's given his whole day to spend with students, talk with faculty, staff about his role, his perspective, and is just really, really generous with his time. And so thanks so much, Todd, for spending the day with us and your willingness to talk about your career path and also answer some of the students' questions about your area of expertise. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Todd and my esteemed colleague, Aaron Richard, with the Burgess Institute.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming tonight. Go ahead if you want to flip on your energy pack. No, that's all us. There you go.
We're
Awesome.
rolling.
Thank you all for coming tonight. And yes, I do want to double down on that messaging. BNVC, $50,000 of cash prizes. Nobody goes home empty-handed, which is the coolest part about that pitch competition. And I hope you can come back for Burgess Adventure Challenge. It is in April.
That's
April
better
4th.
weather, yeah. I
Yeah,
can do
please.
That.
I'm sorry that you ended up with this weather
Oh, that's good.
this week. So I will not pause, but I will say I don't want to assume that everyone knows who you are in this room, but you are in fact a big deal. So if you could give us the elevator, you just shook your head like no, but yes, like could you give us the elevator pitch about who Todd Dunn is?
Yeah. Got my MBA here in '99. Like Chris said, since then I've had a pretty interesting career. First and foremost, I'm a husband and a dad. I'll just remind you that. I have a 26-year-old Oliver who plays baseball for the Phillies in their minor league system, having a great year. My daughter Emma is in med school in Tampa, Florida. And my younger son Ross just got drafted by the Minnesota Twins in July. So short story is we're empty nesters. When I left here, I took the first half of my career to just spend in supply chain management, which is a fascinating thing, and you may be asking me a question how I chose state. But Cisco Systems, you probably know them, the big internet juggernaut. I worked for them. I've worked for Siemens, which you've probably heard of. I've worked for McKesson, who you've probably heard of, and I've worked for GE. After being in those big global companies, I chose to go work for a healthcare provider, Intermountain Healthcare in Salt Lake City. Part of what drove me there is because I worked for Siemens Healthcare, GE Healthcare, and McKesson on the healthcare side. And I really wanted to see what it was like from the bowels of a system that took care of people in beds. I didn't want to be on the outside of it anymore. I really wanted to understand it from the inside. My mother was a nurse, my stepdad was a pharmacist. I was kind of intrigued by this whole thing. And then in 20, we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. To Chris's point, I joined a company called Atrium Health. It's now Advocate Health. You probably don't know these big names, but it's the third largest health system in the country. And we have hospitals from Milwaukee, Wisconsin to Macon, Georgia. And my job there is to lead innovation for the enterprise. And we can talk about what does that word mean because it's often misunderstood or not well defined.
All right.
I don't know what else you want to tell me. That's
That's
kind of
great.
me in a nutshell. My accent, I grew up in Georgia.
I was just going to ask you, where did you grow up?
And now that I'm back in North Carolina, that accent tends to come out a little bit more that I'm living back in the South. But we live about 30 minutes out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So it's a lovely place.
Where did you grow up in Georgia?
Oh my gosh, you can't find it with Google Maps. The name of it is Moultrie, Georgia. It's 1 hour north of Tallahassee, Florida. So it's still one high school in the entire county. So a lot to be said that you can come from small places and still do fun things in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you grow up with entrepreneurs? Did you grow up with innovators?
Yeah, that word really wasn't, innovator really wasn't around. My dad was a farm boy, a great guy. We unfortunately lost him a month ago, but
I'm so sorry.
he was an entrepreneur. He owned his own businesses. He grew up as a farm boy, never had the opportunity to go to college, and just decided to start businesses. And so he owned 4 or 5 small businesses with his brothers or with his brother. And so I always grew up in that kind of relentless focus on the customer and making sure that you always stayed a step ahead of what they really wanted from you and being hyper frugal at the same time because everybody else got paid before you did when you owned your own business. And so, yeah, and my dad was kind of an irascible guy in the fact that he was never satisfied kind of with the status quo. So he was a true, just relentless entrepreneur. And even after selling the businesses in Southern Georgia, he got into the tech businesses. And yeah, my whole life, that's what he did.
And you said your mother is a nurse.
My mother's a nurse.
How long has she been a nurse for?
She retired at the age of 75.
Oh my goodness.
And she was an interesting story. She went back to school to be a nurse in her 40s.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty cool thing, right? She got all the kids kicked out of the house and decided she wanted to do something cool. And she became a nurse and she retired right in the middle of COVID.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. She must have loved it.
Yeah, she loved it. She was, and she's super just healthy and fortunate that way, but during COVID, 75 years old, I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm ready to just go enjoy life. So now she's hanging out in the warmer weather of the South. And
How does she sit still? I mean, it's,
she doesn't really. She still stays very involved in community things, and she loves to walk and take care of herself and read. So she sits still in a different way now.
fair.
Yeah.
Do you sit still?
No. Well, yes, that's not a fair answer. Because the boys play so much baseball, and Ross was at ASU last year for his final year before the draft, I watched every one of their games. And then Oliver, because his games were on the East Coast, his games would happen before Ross's game in Arizona. And so I've watched about 200 baseball games this year.
Wow.
And so I sit still there, kind of.
Yeah.
But I multitask. I'll work sometimes, or I'll work on my own startup at times, but I don't really like sitting still much unless I'm watching the boys do something. Yeah.
So how did growing up with an entrepreneur, I mean, my dad worked in automobile. I mean, he was a manufacturing supervisor. He ran a plant.
Okay.
And he was dedicated to it immensely.
Yeah.
That did not inspire me to go into the industry.
Yeah.
What made you want to be an entrepreneur? How did your upbringing?
Well, it's an interesting path. Actually, I didn't want to be one.
Okay.
Meaning, I wanted to go to grad school to go experience the big corporate world. I thought it was pretty cool to work for a corporation that had people in almost every country of the world, like GE. So we'd be on calls, and you had people from literally all over the world. That was really cool. Cisco Systems was phenomenal. It's Silicon Valley. It was hopping in the early 2000s. It was intense. The bubble burst. So I wanted to go experience the big corporate world because you really kind of understand global economies and how you think about customers from all over the place, which actually is one of the reasons I chose Michigan State, because I wanted to know how these big corporations thought and delivered value to people. But all along there was this thread that you could pull through it that I was just kind of I'm still in a big corporation, but I'm in a role that allows me to scratch the entrepreneur itch. And so I didn't set out to be an innovator necessarily, but I think growing up the way that I did, with being kind of dissatisfied with the common status thing, has made my career inside of corporate America really interesting. It's never boring.
Just before we dive into a little bit more, when you think, give us a context of the word innovator or innovation. Like when you, I apologize, because I feel like that is the arc that carry us.
So somebody's online. Someone go to Google for me? Or if you use Bing, if that's even a thing.
It is.
Or DuckDuckGo. I don't care what you use. Raise your hand when you're there. Type in the word innovation for me and tell me how many hits you get and how many milliseconds.
About 1,330,000 results.
Is it 1 million or 1 billion?
Well, I looked up innovator.
Just look up innovation. All right, so okay. Give me that next number. 1,300,000 references to the word innovator.
And then 39 million.
39 million hits for the word innovation.
Yep.
That's how many definitions you have. All right, so
how do you define it?
Jeff Bezos had a really interesting quote on this. And he said that the only person that gets to define innovation is the consumer.
Interesting. That is
So
interesting.
I might have a role, and I might build something that I think is innovative. But is it my opinion that matters, or is it the opinion of the person that buys it or experiences it? So the way that I think about it, I almost don't think that I get to attribute the title to myself. I'm in an innovation role, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm an innovator. If I don't deliver value to the people that I serve, in their eyes, I'm not one. Innovation, I think, is the activity of building something meaningful and measurable for somebody. It's a really high-level thing, because the reason that I offer it that way is if I build something for you, the only thing that matters is how you measure it.
Right.
And so innovation is about delivering value in some way. And Clay Christensen was a dear friend and mentor of mine. He's a guy like the god of innovation, really. And he came up with the concept disruptive innovation. You probably all heard that term. Most people don't understand it. And I don't say it rudely, we just don't. And what Clay said it really was is giving something that is just as good or better for a better price and experience so that more people can embrace it. That's disruptive innovation. And so, but again, his definition even was the consumer gets to determine what it is.
What would he say? What would you say is a top innovation right now? Like you have this panoply, a cornucopia of tech gadgets or whiz bangs. What is one thing that you've found to be an incredible innovation?
Wow. From the medical world, there's a company called Civica RX. So I don't necessarily think now that gadgets and widgets are the focal point of innovation because they're not the basis of competition. They're not. The basis of competition is the way your company is built, what we will call a business model. And if you look up a company called Civica RX, it's a company that is competing in the generic drug space. I'll compare the models. Historically, you have these pharma companies that are historically really bad actors. They sell a drug that's a generic drug, which means there's not a patent to protect it anymore, but they own the market. And let's say they charge $500 for it. Happens all the time. It's worse. Insulin, it's another story. In economics, for those of you who are studying that, if somebody's making a margin of $450 on something, it would tell me as a business person I need to hop in. And so you would think people are going to hop in. But this is where you get inelastic demand and bad actors, and it's really jacked up. So I want to get in and make the generic drug. But you're a bad actor.
Okay.
You sell it for $500 today, but it cost you $5 to make it. This is an actual story. And so you see me come in, what do? You drop it to $10. Now there's not enough margin to attract me to do it. So I say, I'm out. You know, it's like you ever played cards, like I'm out. You fold your cards. Companies fold their cards. What do? You're a bad actor. What do?
Raise the price again.
Go back up to $500. It's a bad model. So what we did at my former company, our chief strategy officer did is said, well, why don't we move the drug companies out of it? It's not on patent anymore. Let's go to the contract manufacturers ourselves. And then rather than worrying about salespeople going into hospital systems, why wouldn't we just get hospital systems to commit half of their volume of the generic drug to us, and we'll sell it to them for $10? The drug's the same. Everything around it is different. And so it's literally, there will be stories written about that company for years because what it's doing, to Clay's point, is bringing something at a much better price point so that more people can afford it, and it reduces the cost of healthcare in the country. I would say that's it literally is one of the best ones I've ever seen. Another great one that actually is a device, it's not necessarily the business model that's so different. When you go to the hospital, and I'm not going to ask because it's PHI, whole privacy thing. When you go to a hospital, you often, if you're a nurse, and you run a line in somebody's arm to drip meds, if they have to come back later and draw blood, they poke you. Sucks, right?
Yeah.
It really sucks for people. 15% of people in the country are trypanophobic. There's a word actually for the fear of needles. It's trypanophobic. That's how pervasive this problem is. Well, some of my buddies, and I'm actually on the board of this company because I'm so passionate about it, have figured out a way to repurpose that catheter that's in your arm and draw blood without a needle. So I don't like to say you get sick. Somebody gets sick. They go in a hospital, they have a line drawn, they're dripping meds or fluids. They can just turn the drip off, repurpose that, draw blood without a needle. The people sleep through it. It's amazing. The reason that I love it is because it removes the pain of the procedure, not only from the patient, but from I've seen kids held down by all fours screaming just so you can get blood, or the nurse that has to apologize, they say, hey, I'm sorry, I have to draw your blood. It takes away all of that. So all of a sudden we still get the blood, but without all the bad stuff around it.
Yep.
That's one I'm hyper excited about because it's going to change the world of the way we think about getting fluids out of the body.
That's incredible.
It's nuts.
I'm going to
yeah.
take us back a little bit though.
Yeah.
So how did you get to University of Utah? Like, what
My
drew you
sister
there?
lived there,
Okay.
and her husband went to law school there. And I'd lived in the South so long, I wanted to go see something different. She's like, man, you got to come see the mountains of the West.
And they're beautiful.
Oh, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
And I said, okay. But, you know, you take a Flatlander, because I graduated high school from Louisiana to there. It's pretty different. So I tried to learn how to ski, and oh, my gosh, I'm glad there wasn't cell phones back then to show how unathletic I am. I mean, my kids are super athletes, but I didn't really get that. But that's how I got there, is my sister and her husband moved there, and she's like, you got to come out. And he was a graduate law school at the University of Utah, so I went there.
And then what brought you to Michigan State?
That's a great question. All your questions are good, but that's
Well,
a
thank
really
you.
interesting one considering the context of the dialogue. So my undergrad degree was a guy named Dr. Gary Grickscheit. And by the way, if you're taking notes of any tip I give you, this is the one I want you to take seriously. I said, Dr. Grickscheit, I want your recommendation to go to MBA school. And he said, where do you think you want to go? So I listed all the ego ones. Duke, Harvard, not interested in Yale, Virginia, and then I listed 20 of them. And he said, you know where I went for my graduate degree, my doctorate degree? I said, yeah, Michigan State. He said, you need to look in this. You need to go look at it. And then we started talking about what I wanted to learn, which I'll get to in a minute. But Dr. Grickscheit said, before I write you a letter of recommendation, you have to make an A in my class. There are 24 people. I said, Gary, that's not a problem. He looked at me and he said, yes, it is. He was a pretty direct guy. He said, only give 3 A's. I said, well, I'm top 3, bro. I'll do it. He said, Todd, it's going to take 4 hours outside of a class for every hour in. I can promise you that's what it's going to take. I said, what if I told you I'm a fast learner? He said, I would tell you it's going to take you 4 hours. I mean, and it did. He said, you have to make an A in my class. It's okay. So I did that. And then he said, before I write a letter of recommendation, you have to build a sales model or a sales booklet about yourself. And I said, what does that look like? He said, you have to write down 100 reasons why someone should let you into their graduate business program. 100? Like, you kidding, Gary? He said, do you want the letter or not? I want the letter, especially for Michigan State. And so I did it. I got frozen at 13. I wrote down 13 reasons. I'll never forget this. Not the, oh, I'm screwed. I'm never going to get to 100. And so then I went to my wife, and I went to my mom, and I went to my friends, and I'm like, y'all just make stuff up. Make stuff up. So I took 100 back to Gary. And I walked in and I got it. And so, because I thought that was the end of it. Got it. He said, now go boil it down to 10. Go write every one of those on a Post-it note on your wall and do a finitization and gather all of those into 10 themes and name each one of those 10 buckets one word. It's okay. When do I have to do that? 1 week. Dang. So I did that. Went back, he said, good job. Now pick the top 5. It's like, man, I go from 100 to 5. Like, there was no negotiating with him. He's like, you got to do it. And so I went and I did that. And then for each of the 10, I had to write a reason that was, why is that important to the school? And why would that be important to one of my teammates in school? So I had to write a reason for each of the 10 for the school and for a colleague, if you and I were in the MBA school together. Because he said, I want you to think about the value you bring to them. And so I did it. And then he said, pick the top 3 words in every single essay that you write, every single resume that you write, every single interview you go into has to reinforce your brand. Because those 3 to 5 words is who you've decided to be. That's who you've got to be true to being. And so in every one of my essays, I did that. And he wrote the letter. But he said, look, he was really candid with me. So you're a smart kid, dude. was like, Gary, where are you going with this? He said, but you're no Harvard boy. He said, you are not a Harvard guy. You're too nice to go to Harvard. What do you mean by that? He said, look, man, you won't like the culture. I went there. And then we started talking about Michigan State. He said, what do you want to learn at school? I said, I want to learn the guts of how a business goes from understanding something from a customer and getting it to them. And he said, well, then really what you're trying to understand is the supply chain of an organization. And there's no better school in America than going to Michigan State for that. And it made me think about my dad's businesses.
Yep.
Because I wanted to understand it at the massive level. I wanted to understand it for the GEs, the Ciscos, the Siemens of the world. Because then I could take that concept and scale it and really change the way that things rolled. And I remember having an interview here with Jennifer Chiswick and Brenda, and I got to meet a couple of the professors, and I went through and I scored all the schools I got accepted into, and culture-wise, what I wanted to learn. And the thing that really resonated with me was the pragmatism of the school. Like I could get out and go do something. I didn't want to go into consulting because I never wanted to be in an airplane that much. And that's really what drove me here, is one, just a mentor that just took me under his wing and taught me, but also what I aspired to do in my career is know how big corporations run so I could run them.
So how would you describe your Spartan experience?
Oh, man. School. So this morning I walked, which hall? That hall up there, over into the old building where I was in grad school before you guys had this incredible facility. And I would say that it was, I keep in touch with friends I went with here. So none of you are probably born in the 90s. And so because of the size of the school, a couple hundred students, we were able to really form great friendship bonds with each other and with the professors. So Dr. Gil Harrell, who's one of the marketing professors, he and I spent an hour together today. He remembered me, I remembered him. And so, but I would say from a friendship and from a culture perspective, I loved it. I mean, it's like wonderful to walk down the halls again today. From a pragmatic business perspective of being able to make an impact the day I graduated, thrilled. I walked out knowing how to do something, not knowing how to just think about it. And that was, for me, Steve Melnick looked at me, Dr. Melnick. He said, look, nobody cares what you know, they care about what you deliver. So the day one you hit your job, forget that you have an MBA, forget anything, just go deliver based on what you know. And I felt prepared to do that day one in my job.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It's always paid off. It still pays off. I still think in the frameworks that I learned here because they just work. They're timeless.
That's inspiring.
It is. It's really, it's timeless. The framework is just absolutely timeless.
So you graduate from Michigan State.
Yeah, man.
Where do you head off to then?
San Jose, California.
And where was the place you landed?
Cisco.
What did you love about Cisco, and what did it teach you?
I loved Cisco gave bonuses on two things: customer satisfaction surveys and profitability. Those two were inextricably tied together. And the company at the time was about $30 billion. We had no debt. We got to make decisions really fast. But the thing that I liked about it maybe is summed up better in a story. So I was at my desk one day, and I was just a recent grad. John Chambers, who was the CEO, came up the stairs, and I could hear him. Everybody knew John's West Virginia twang. And he comes up, and he says, hey, Todd, what are you working on? I told him. He knew about the project because we had dedicated, at the time, $20 million that year to work on it. And it was connecting a global supply chain. It's it's amazing project. It's amazing. And he said, hey, why don't you come here? He brought 8 of us in a circle. And of course, you got the CEO of the most valuable company in the world. Dude just cashed in like $100 million of stock. And so he's a pretty interesting guy. Really humble guy, really kind. And we're all nodding like a bunch of damn lemmings, you know, because he's the CEO. He's like the rock star guy on Forbes magazine. And he stopped, looked us dead in the eye, each of us, said, why are you agreeing with me? Because you're the boss. He said, I'm going to tell you why you agree with me. because I run the most successful company in the world, and you think it's me, and you're wrong. He said, if 9 of us think the same way, only 1 of us is needed, and I'm not retiring for at least 10 more years. What do you think he just told us? He said, I'm not saying I'm going to fire you, but if you think like me and you don't question me, or if you think just like your workmate and you don't question your workmate or allow yourself to be questioned, you're not needed here. We need your brain. Because I had to go through 11 interviews to get hired there, brutal. And everybody had to say yes. And the thing I loved most about it was the culture, was the intellectual culture of never being satisfied with where we were today and always lifting each other through really respectful but intense dialogue. It was never rude. If you're rude, you got fired. But the intellectual stimulation of always making us think and learn together in a global company was unbelievable.
Have you experienced that everywhere you've gone?
No. Oh, mercy. No, man, no. I'm writing a book, and one of the chapters in the book, I can't say the title because I don't know that a company would, or a publisher will let me do it. But you can. There was a drug that this lady sang about during COVID. You can go look it up. But no.
No.
Most cultures aren't that.
Why?
Ego gets in the way.
Fair.
I think we often forget that we work for the company doesn't work for us, and that we work together versus working for ourselves. And if the tone at the top is not that, the tone in the corporation will not be that. And so, no, that was the company I'm in now. Gene's really good. The CEO's amazing. But that one was pretty rare.
How do you know when the culture is off?
When the big guy doesn't ask questions, or when you don't feel safe asking them.
Interesting. Tell me more about not feeling safe about asking them.
You ever been in a room and you're like, you really have to think 4 or 5 times about how you ask the question? What causes that?
Say it louder.
Fear of what?
Judgment, ridicule.
What's bad about that?
Kind of stifles creativity, I guess.
What's bad about that?
Then you can't innovate, I guess.
Okay. The reason I ask, and we'll talk about what versus why in a minute, because it's another thing I like to leave with people. The bad thing about it is that you think your career is going to be damaged if you speak up. That's horrible. I would never go work somewhere like that. Leave. Don't do that. You're too brilliant. Companies need great brains. If the leaders at the top don't let things get challenged, you don't want to be there because your company's not going to do better and you're not going to be happy at work. And by the way, it's a lot of your life. And so that's the way you know, is if people speak at the water cooler about, I wish I could have asked, or if you hear people not speaking up. Silence. You sit in a meeting and just the big guy talks or the big lady talks and they're not really interested in being challenged. Not a good place to be. Because you don't want to go to work to do that. You're all brilliant. Like literally, you would not be here if you were not really talented and have a great future ahead of you. And so don't let a culture stifle who you can be.
That's incredible to, because I feel like a lot of people hear that and then there's like an insecurity that sets in. You're like, I have to pay for my student loans. I have to pay for the roof over my head.
Well, that's true, but there's also this fundamental belief, is that the only damn place you can do that?
Yeah.
Like, no.
Exactly.
No, the world doesn't own you. And never give that up to anybody. It's what I would say. So my kids, how do you say it? I want to say it respectfully. Because I'm not trying to brag on them, but I want to use them as a concept, okay? So my older son is an amazing ball player. My daughter is in med school. My younger one got drafted, and people asked us, how did you do it? It is not about what they're doing. I don't care if it's baseball, I don't care. I didn't care what it was. We did not care what it was. Pick what you love, first rule. Pick what really wakes you up in the morning. And that may take you a few years to find it, but when you find it, you found it, and you know it. It rings true with you. You'll know in your soul. The second thing is, so set the dream, find what you love. The second thing is work. It's simple. Work your butt off, because it still boils down to it. I mean, I've known a lot of professional athletes and a lot of super successful people, and they just have a commitment to the work that it takes to be all they can be. And they're willing to give things up to do it. The comfort of a party, or they'll give it up to go win. The third thing is, I would tell you that I think might be the best ingredient you'll ever have, is never listen to the naysayers about you. If someone's like, I don't think you can do it. If you have a professor, or if you have professors would never tell you that. But if you have a friend's like, dude, you can't go to med school. Man, never listen to the naysayers, not even yourself. There are two naysayers. There's somebody outside of you and there's somebody inside of you. And so never listen to the naysayer inside of yourself either. Never doubt yourself. It doesn't help you. And so I think if you get those three principles right, you'll have a great career regardless. And the reason that I say that, you get worried about, this is the only job that I can find. No. Believe in yourself and things will open up for you. If you don't believe in yourself, no doors ever open.
Everybody get that down?
Dead true. I mean, you can watch it as a pattern with everybody.
I feel like I could talk to you for like 10 hours. We should probably go have a quick beverage.
You're asking intriguing questions.
Well, I do want to be able to swing over to, what are, as these brilliant young minds go out to start innovating within companies or starting their own companies, what are the real challenges they are going to face in healthcare in particular?
Yeah. Healthcare in and of itself is an interesting place, because what's one of the mottos? Do no harm. So inherently in the design of the entire system around the globe, you want zero risk.
That's a little difficult.
That doesn't go well with innovation. They're almost dichotomous things that don't go together. But that's also why it's a fertile ground for innovation. What do I mean by that? So do no harm. If you can figure out how to define a problem that's causing harm to the company's financials, to a patient, or not allowing you to take as good of care that you want to of a patient, which is in some form harm, if you can diagnose really well before you try to prescribe, you'll be a more successful innovator, entrepreneur in healthcare. If you just try to run at something with your prescription before you have a diagnosis, the very nature and structure of medicine will resist you. Because remember, there are just some fundamental principles in medicine. We diagnose before we prescribe. We have to. Even in the ED, someone pops in and they've got a problem, you're going to diagnose, even though, sometimes you just got to go after it because they may die, like a gunshot wound. Interesting thing to see. But diagnose before you prescribe. There's also the scientific method that is the backbone of medical progress for centuries. Write down an assumption, design a test, run an experiment, get insights. If you can learn those two principles, diagnose before you prescribe, and apply to that kind of de-risking mode of hypothesis-driven learning, then it's easier to innovate in medicine. It took me about 10 years to be able to articulate that. I beat my head against the wall, that's why my hair fell out. But that's why it's hard, because inherently do no harm. And another thing that makes it hard, margin. Like the money that you keep out of let's say you make $100 million in healthcare, you're really lucky to keep $4 million.
Wow.
So think about that. You made $1 million in Michigan State last year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You only kept 40,000.
Not that great.
That makes it really hard because then you don't have a lot of money to innovate with.
Yep.
And so the lack of a lot of cash makes it harder. So you have to learn to be frugal in your learning. And those are a few principles that just make it really hard. But I think it's the do no harm. And there's so many problems in healthcare because it's complex. It's a human problem. And picking which one to work on first and getting an alliance around that makes it hard. You can do it, but you got to have the skill of knowing how to build alliances around a problem.
So building relationships with individuals,
No.
No?
All right, so I'm going to distinguish this for you, but yes and no at the same time, and it's
Okay.
an odd answer. So there's a guy named Michael Watkins, amazing leader. Michael, hi. He wrote a book called The First 90 Days. When you go into a corporation, when you graduate, read the book. Michael's a great guy, by the way. He's incredibly sharp. He wrote the other book called Master Your Next Move. And when I joined Atrium, I had one of his coaches, an executive coach for 6 months, and she had me read the book, and we would talk about it. In that book, he distinguishes between relationships and alliances. Relationships are Chris and I'll go to the Jolly Pumpkin and have a good meal, and we'll be buddies. We'll keep in touch. It's great. It does not mean we're allies. So an alliance is when you and other people agree on the opportunity or the problem to solve, and if you win, everybody wins together. That's an alliance. And so pick those areas where you can build alliances around opportunities or problems. If you win together, your relationship will be better. Because you have a good relationship doesn't mean you're aligned around the problem or the approach.
Fair.
So focus a lot on building alliances. It's a different skill set. I'm not dismissing relationships, that's important. But when it comes to being successful in a business, you got to build alliances. If you watch the great sports teams, you can watch them in the dugout, you can watch them on the side of the field. You can tell they're all in it together. Like they're really in it together. They have built an alliance around their goal. Everybody's all in. Like we're gonna stack hands. Worry about stacking hands more than you worry about patting backs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What does an average day look like for you?
I wake up at usually about 5:30 every morning. I get up and get myself some go-go juice. And then I pretty much go, for a while, some mornings I get up, and I actually think this is important. I got away from it for the last month or so, but I would get up in the morning, and if anyone ever heard about this concept of 1% better? Okay. It's often not what you think it means on the surface. What is 1% of your day in minutes? And for those of you who heard this earlier, you can hold the answer so you look really smart, but what is 1% of your day? How many minutes? Yeah, see, like you can't ask Siri right now. It's 14 minutes and 40 seconds.
Wow.
So I would get up, I did this for months because of travel and things, I got away from it recently. I would get up and I would spend 14 minutes and 40 seconds meditating in the morning. Because I wake up wound up. I wake up like buzzing. I mean, I'm intense when I wake up in the morning, and I don't think that's a good way to start your day. And I've recognized that in myself, so I would sit still on my yoga mat for 14 minutes and 40 seconds. A little geeky, but I put a timer on it because mentally I was ready to get to my computer, but emotionally I wasn't. And I think you got to get those in line. You're going to be jacked up if you don't. And so I would sit there and I would just breathe for 14 minutes and 40 seconds. Or I would imagine like buying a Porsche or whatever. I would just let my brain go somewhere else. Then I would stretch for 14 minutes and 40 seconds. Now, this is when I was getting up at 5 in the morning because I would go to bed early enough to get good sleep, and then I would meditate, and then I would do yoga, and then I read every single day. I have read, there aren't 100 days in the last 20 years that I've missed a day of reading. And so then I would read for
14 minutes, 40 seconds.
14 minutes and 40 seconds, which means I go through books pretty quickly. It doesn't seem like it. And that, for months and months, was the way that I started my day, just because of my kids and baseball and travel to watch them and get my daughter in med school. I've messed up my sequence a little bit, but that's traditionally the way I start my day. And then I start my day pretty centered on just me. I'm not stressed when I hit the keyboard, and I can kind of be a little bit clearer, and I kind of put the worry of the day behind me and I just get going. I like to spend the first hour of my day with no meetings. I don't want anybody bothering me because I like to think. Sometimes you need to sit with a problem, or you need to sit with an opportunity, or you need to say, oh my gosh, Chris and I are not getting along. We work together. And I like to sit with it and figure out in my quiet office how I'm going to work through it, and then I'm cranked. I'm cranked at 8 o'clock every morning, sometimes a little earlier, and then I'll run really hard till 5 or 6, and then I shut off. I go to the gym. I know you can't tell, but I do. I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week, and for anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour. And if on days I'm super exhausted, if I just don't feel like getting after it, I will still go, because I think it's good to take care of me. And so I'll do that. If I'm beat, I go for a half hour, and then I go home, and then I'll read or I'll watch a baseball game, or when then I'll just hang and talk. But that's a day. I have an 8-year-old Rottweiler, and I like to walk him at night. He knows more about innovation theory and writing books than most humans, because I talk to him like, hey, what do you think? Because I can talk through, I can write chapters in my head and talk them out as I walk the dog. And so to me, I call it my gait of gratitude, like a gait, G-A-I-T, like your gait as you walk. I think this is one of the most healing things you can ever do in life, by the way. I picked this up during COVID because it sucked. Because I moved to North Carolina, left my family in the West because the boys needed a place to play baseball. Daughter was off at school. So I would take what I call the gait of gratitude. And as I walked, I would set a timer for at least 5 minutes. And for 5 minutes, I would do nothing but say what I was grateful for. Because it resets my brain. You come out of a crappy day, it's really hard to sit and think about what you're grateful for. So put the mechanism in your way. Put a mechanism that interrupts negativity in your way. And so that's what I did. So when I walk, it's the gait of gratitude. And that really calms my day and lets me ease into the night. Even if I do it after a ball game at 9 or 9:30, just go on a 15-minute walk and talk to the dog about innovation and think of all the things I'm grateful for. And I think about I'm grateful that leaf just turned purple because it's beautiful. I look at anything I can be grateful for, and I think it resets our hearts and minds to be better people. It's not about business then, it's just about who you are for you and for the people around you.
It embraces humanity.
What else matters?
It is at this point that I get to turn the attention to our room.
Oh, yeah.
If you have questions.
Let's go. This is the fun part. And I don't fly out until 6 o'clock in the morning, so I have all the time you want. Yes, sir.
So with the big model help, right? So big model one day can do lots of job doctor is doing today.
Mm-hmm.
So do you imagine, we're gonna have less doctor to provide the same service today, or we're gonna have similar amount of doctor, but we can provide more service at lower price with different kind of choice?
The latter.
Which will help?
The latter. Why do I think that? I do worry a little bit about my daughter just got into med school. Getting into med school is really hard. It's very expensive. I think as a country we need to figure out the economics of medical school. And I'm not blaming on the medical schools. We need to figure this out as a country so that we can attract more brilliant minds into medicine, because our populations are aging. The need for care is going up. Our hospitals in Charlotte are packed. What I hope happens with AI, and I'll give you my opinion of what I think. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence in healthcare. There's nothing artificial about it. Where did the data come from? A human. And so I get a little concerned that we think about it as being artificial. I think about it as adaptive intelligence, meaning to where it will adapt to you as a doctor and allow you to take care of more people and allow you to take care of yourself. The suicide rate amongst doctors is twice the normal rate in the country because they give their souls. Can't do it.
Thank you for that question.
I apologize. I had a friend commit suicide who was a doctor. It's horrible. Horrible. So my aim is that it reduces the burden of being a doctor. And it allows you to take care of everybody you want to take care of and take care of yourself. If we don't get that right, we have screwed up the whole idea of artificial intelligence and large language models or learning models. Messed it up. Yes?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you didn't cut me off. You're good. And don't worry about that. You don't have to apologize to me. Look, I'm from the South, and we talk over each other all the time. It's just the way it works.
So I'm also a supply chain major, and I'm graduating this, next semester.
Congratulations.
So I know you touched on it a little bit. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
On what to look for in a full-time job, but I was curious
Yeah.
if you wanted to touch on that further, or also in addition to that question.
Yeah.
Reflecting back on your past experience,
Yeah.
are there any steps that you would take out, or knowing what you know now, do differently?
That's a great question.
No, these are both really good. Ask the company how they make decisions. Like, can you describe to me when you run into a problem as a group, what you do to come to center on a decision? And may I talk to some of the people in the group to ask how that happens? The reason that I ask it, that tells you more about the culture than anything else. When we run into a problem, is it the boss saying, this is how we're going to do it? Or is it the boss saying, okay, guys, we've got to get in a room. We're going to write the problem on the wall, and let's all go after it. Let's go attack the problem. Let's go attack what we think would work, and let's find the dichotomous opinions, and let's see what it will take for us to become on center. Because to me, supply chain management is problem solving in a very structured way. I do think about it a little bit differently since I graduated. I don't think about the supply chain as much as I think about the information chain. So what is the piece of information sitting somewhere that triggered us to do something as a corporation? Was it someone buying something? Was it someone searching for something? Was it a survey? What was it that kicked it off? And if you can look for the flow of information, like tell me how information flows. I would ask this question in the interview. Can you tell me what it is that happens out in the consumer world that triggers your company to do something, and how you know what that information chain looks like from the time that gets triggered to the time that you build and deploy something and support it? Because if you can find the gaps in the friction in the information chain, you can fix the supply chain. Because it's the underlying root. And that's why I've changed my thinking of the way I talk about or think about supply chains. But that's also why a degree here served me so well, is because I thought about the whole way a company has to run and operate to deliver value. Has my career thinking changed since I left? Yeah. Yeah, I used to really want to be a CEO of a company so bad. I don't know that I want that role anymore. I prefer to be in a role to where I try to influence the culture and the behavior of what we do, which is why an innovation role is really interesting. And then, of course, I love the startup world. I'm on a few boards, and I've got my own startup. And so I've thought about that a little bit differently, but it still boils down to what's the chain that makes the company do what it does. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned the model of healthcare, which is do no harm, which consequently brings a bunch of regulatory barriers for proving
Yep.
that your idea does improve
Yeah.
healthcare.
Yeah.
But then you also have those regulatory barriers of a massive amount of funding going towards that. So how do you
I would say that's probably the most absolute difficult thing from a startup perspective is going through the FDA. I mean, it's because it's so heavy regulatory wise and it's so expensive that you almost have to brace yourself for it. But I would say if you're building a product that's an FDA regulated product, study it so you know it. Study the FDA process, like really get to know it so that when venture people are pressing you, you understand the details of it to build confidence with them. And so that's one of those things that's just kind of a given. It's cold when it snows. Well, if it's a regulated product, you got to go through the FDA, that's okay. But even though it passes the FDA doesn't mean you have a successful business. Right? You got that. Then you got to do that. It's like you got to have the ticket to get into, even Kelsey probably has to have a ticket to get into Taylor Swift concert, right? So you got to have a ticket to get in. And the ticket to ride is the FDA. But it doesn't mean your business is going to be a good business. And so if you step back from the FDA conflict for a second and you look at your business model, and I don't know if y'all teach business models like Alex Osterwalder teaches business models, a business model canvas. Like Alex is a very dear friend of mine. And if you step back and say the FDA is one piece of it, but if zoom out and think about all the elements that have to be in place for your business to work. The reason that I bring this up is when you go to the venture people, you have to help them realize that the benefit is bigger than the risk of the FDA. You have to offset it. And if you can offset it by explaining the size of the problem that you're solving for, then they'll be able to more easily see the path that they're willing to go to the FDA with. So you got to myopically focus on it, but you can't get lost in it. It's really hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat that a bit. It's hard, but it is worth going through. Because if people didn't go through it, medicine would not be where it is today.
To be fair, he is a co-founder of a healthcare startup. So you might want to have a conversation as well.
Oh, yeah, because in the last decade, I have met easily with 700 healthcare startups. Easily. Go to steveblank.com, look up my name, read the 7 Deadly Habits of Healthcare Startups. I wrote it in 2015. I would change it a bit today. I updated that one on LinkedIn, I think. But I'll gladly have a conversation with you. I set aside a half a day every week or 2 weeks, I can't remember, where I only interact with companies outside of my company. And I spend a lot of time with early stage companies to say, okay, this is what I think this is what you ought to think about. And I even have a 10-page checklist of what it takes for a healthcare startup to work with a healthcare system. So yeah, I'll share it with you. Yeah, good for you, man. Always attack the problem. Always keep the problem central to your conversations. I can teach you how to pitch to healthcare systems too. Diagnose. Yes, sir.
When it comes to using AI to improve practice of being a doctor, like you touched on,
Yeah.
have you identified any specific use cases, specifically for like generative AI, and can you discuss any of those?
Yes, we have. I want to step back for just a second with AI and tell you what and I mentioned this even inside my company, is the one issue that I have with it is the currency that it's missing, the currency of trust. Mm-hmm. And so if you're thinking about building an AI solution for healthcare, the one thing that could kill you is not having the currency of trust by the people who have to use it. If they don't trust that the answer that it's giving them is making it safer and better for them to take care of a patient, they're not going to use it. So if you're designing it, think about it. We are using AI in image identification, picking up on cancerous tumors and things that the human eye often misses. And so we're trying to figure out how to augment the doctors with the support of AI. That's how we're not trying to let AI lead, we're trying to let it play a supporting role in making the job easier. We're using ambient listening, which is really interesting, and you don't think it's really AI, but it's taking this incredible noise in a room and transmitting into a doctor's note. And we're giving doctors back an hour a day in some of our clinics of not having to type in a computer. But we're looking at, oh my gosh, we're looking at things that signals from the brain, telemetry data. You know what telemetry data is? It's just, okay, just think about it. You got heart monitors and all these things on you in a hospital. There's a lot of work in the world to look at that telemetry data every millisecond. Because today a nurse walks in and like looks at something and she or he could miss it. Imagine having AI sitting on all this amazing data to predict if you're going to start digressing as a patient a day or two before a human can figure it out. Oh yeah, there's so many use cases. Listening to the infraction rate of a heart and letting the computer interpret the sound to tell you. There's another one that I think is a really cool one called Canary Speech. Your voice has 20-something hundred biomarkers in it, and they're able to pick up depression in your voice, even when you're telling people you're not. They're able to pick up Alzheimer's, dementia, before any human could ever pick it up. And that's a great use of AI with the depth of research in medicine to try to guide care and to guide the path of care through the healthcare system. There's a long list, but yeah. And if that's an area you want to learn more of, we have a whole group dedicated. We have data scientists dedicated to that. I'll set up a dialogue with you. Yeah, it's fascinating space. We got to figure out what's the currency of trust. How do I know to trust what it's telling me? It's like when a Tesla drives you off the cliff. Can they tell, when it drives you into the back of another car, can they tell you why it drove into the back of another car? Think about medicine. We have to know why it's telling me what it's telling me. And so that's the part that concerns me the most about getting it right. You know, all the venture groups are going to want us to buy stuff super, super fast. But yet, if you're in a bed, or if you're in your home and we're taking care of you, whatever we use to take care of you, we have to trust is the best for you, versus just people wanting us to buy stuff.
Because why? Because the first rule.
Do no harm. Do no harm.
Amen.
Keep going. It's fun.
Any other
It
questions?
may not be fun for you. It's fun for me. I love the questions. And you can just ask me career stuff. It doesn't have to be about innovation at all. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So, you've had a lot of success, obviously. What is a mistake, or have you had a mistake happen in your career that you kind of think about often, and it maybe has hindered you?
Yeah, it's my double-edged sword. I'm irascible. I get frustrated. And even I'm 56. The mistake I've made, I would say, in some spots, is not figuring out how to most effectively express my disagreement. And it's all cultural related. So sometimes it's about adjusting to the culture. In some corporations, like when I was at Cisco, oh man, we argued all the time. It was always respectful. In other cultures, like GE, in part of the culture, you were really encouraged to debate. In other parts, you weren't. And in the parts that you weren't, I sat on my opinion too long, and I let it boil and get me mad, and then I would explode. I would get so mad. And people were like, bro, the dude who'll sit and drink sweet tea with you just ripped you a new one. I was like, where did that come from? And so all of a sudden you create this divide because you sat on your disagreement for so long. You were so mad, you go tell your buddy, that guy's a jerk and he's stupid. And nah. The thing that I think we always have to work on is how to effectively articulate when we don't agree. That is the ultimate skill. It's easy to do it when we agree, but when we disagree. So yeah, there are times, I think of a time when I was at GE, man, I lit into some dudes. And they lit into me. The one dude stood up, and he was a UFC guy. He tried to get in the UFC. I thought he was going to kill me. And I just remember both of us regretting that we never took the time to say, hey, man, we're not seeing eye to eye, but we let it boil to the point to where it was really ineffective. And then we're in damage control. HR pulls you in, dropped a few bad words that they didn't appreciate in the company. So yeah, that one still, actually, it still haunts me and teaches me to, if I disagree with you, I need to express it earlier. Like, and you can do that, by the way, by asking something. Hey, would it be okay? Like, I don't know how to express this very well, but would it be okay if I offered a different point of view, and let's put it on the table to talk about it. Because then it's not about us, it's about the idea. And so I think I'm old as I'm getting now, I'm figuring it out, but you have some regrets around being a little bit too caustic maybe, or too energetic or driven to slow down and realize I'm interacting with humans. We do business with humans, we don't do humans with business. Yeah, that's a great question. Oh, it reminds me of that fight. It was ugly. We got through it though. We're still buddies. Yes, sir.
What kind of healthcare, I guess, innovations are being invested into right now? Like, are they more AI focused, or like, I know you talked about widgets earlier. But
There is an enormous amount of money running toward AI, which also tells me there's going to be an enormous amount of loss in it.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are running at it recklessly without really understanding the diagnosis before the prescription. I can tell you, every day I get emails or LinkedIn messages, and so many of them, now about half of them are AI companies. And so I would tell you a lot of people are going that way. Predominantly it's going that way. I think also in the therapeutic world, there's a lot of money going into drug research still, an enormous amount of money, thank goodness it is. But it often pinches device investments. Digital investments is still pretty interesting, but you're starting to see bubbles burst. Like, I don't know if you saw yesterday, if you follow the company called Olive raised, they said 400 million, it was 800 million, shut their doors yesterday.
Wow.
And so I think you're going to see a cooling off of digital investments until companies can believe that the digital investment is actually related to something that they can prove versus kind of correlated. But yeah, a lot of money's going into AI. And it's good that it is. I'm not arguing that it's not. I just think there will have to be a cooling off because we can't absorb everything that's being built. Yeah, the investment world's an interesting place. Thank goodness for investors, though. I mean, thank goodness for them. They're willing to take a risk on making the future better. And they don't need that many wins.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you continue to fight for yourself and your passions and go towards your goals even when life is busy and hard? Does that make sense?
100? Oh, yeah. Every day it makes sense, actually. Reframe the word sacrifice, I think, is a really interesting way of doing this. The word sacrifice often comes with a negative connotation. It does, right? Think about sacrifice as giving up something good for something better. And when you look at that and you look at these long, hard, exhausting days, realize you're giving up something good, maybe comfort or chilling with buddies or whatever, for something better in your future. The other thing I've learned to do, I'm a lot better at it now, is I've learned how to contain the day. Like when the sun goes down, that day's over. That doesn't mean my day, if today was crappy, it doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be crappy. And so that's really actually part of why I would reset my brains in the morning, is because I'd wake up spun up, because the day before had been really hard or the month before had been really hard. I do that, and then I do what I love to do. And if you can find that, but I find a lot of things I love to do, by the way. So I love to interact with startups, love it. I love coming to campuses, love it. I love watching baseball, love it. I love talking to my daughter. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. She's going through med school, I get to learn. And so I also find things that I get a lot of pleasure in to distract my brain from work, because some days work sucks. And if you realize that it's okay for work to suck at times, then it's not so bad. I just don't set this expectation that it's going to be nirvana. I gave up on that a long time ago. I just want it to be meaningful to me. I don't necessarily need it to be relaxing or what have you. I just need it to be meaningful to me. And then my gate of gratitude. It really helps me. Like, it really, really helps me reset things, because A crappy day didn't go well. Be grateful you're breathing. Sometimes it's the simple things you're really grateful for that remind you life is good. And then I would say the other thing is my wife and I are really close. And I set stretch goals, really big stretch goals that I know aren't going to come tomorrow. And so I kind of have this true North Star of the way I think about the world. And even on bad days, I never remember the 3 rules: pick what you love, work really hard, never listen to the naysayers. The naysayer can be you. So I never listen to my own negative self-talk. I don't do it. So I'll give you a rule of thumb. I did this with my kids. It's in the book, The Fearless Mind. It's a sports psychology book. At the end of the day, if any of you do this, I'm going to ask you to stop doing this. Okay? I want you to make a commitment to yourself as a human to follow me on this, because it matters. Any of you play sports? What'd you play? All right. You play here? Let's go. What a great sport. What position you play? Nice. Nice. You ever get off a field and tell yourself, I suck? You ever done that? Okay, that's a different story. You ever been critical of yourself? All right, let's talk about that for just a minute. And this will apply to anything you do in life. Rule of thumb. When you finish something, even if it didn't go exactly the way you wanted, I want you to write down 3 things that you did well. So you're a defensive end. Let's say you missed the key play, they scored and you lost. Okay, you could etch that in your memory. Don't do that, because then you're being your own naysayer. 3 things you did well. Even if it's I showed up on time, I was positive on the sidelines, and I stayed hydrated. Okay? Now you're going to write down one thing that you're going to work on to get better. Never, ever be critical of yourself as a human. That's not human. That's not what we are built to do. And so when the days get hard, don't beat yourself up. 3 things you did well that day. Even if it's you walk by Chris and you're like, hey man, good to see you. Hey, I was nice to somebody. I'm dead serious. It sounds so simple, but it's one of the best mental practices to have in an entrepreneur too. I mean, like, oh gosh, I just lost $60,000. Like, what's good about that? Back up. What did you do well? And then what's the one thing you're going to learn? The 3-1 rule is so powerful. For business people, for athletes, it does not matter. And so, by the way, that's one way I keep myself going is I don't beat myself up. I stopped that stupid thing a long time ago. Because I'm like, what good is it doing me or what good is it doing the world to beat me up? I'm not going to do that. And it doesn't mean I'm a super confident guy. I just don't beat myself up. So, yeah, that's huge advice to do that one. That's like life. That's life. What else? Any startup questions? Entrepreneur questions? Innovator questions?
Oh, yeah. We'll take one more question, then we have to wrap.
And Todd's, like you said, he's willing to stick around. So I
I don't go anywhere.
I know some of you have a question, but feel free to just get in line. You can ask that question.
Yeah, I'm just going to chill. Yes, sir.
So I'm currently working as a data scientist in town at a health insurance firm. So I just want to know what's the biggest innovation that's coming with health insurance. Like, do you know?
The biggest innovation that's coming with data science?
In health insurance.
In health insurance. I don't know. But I will tell you what I'm watching. The insurance companies are changing their information chains and what they want to own in it. So let me explain for just a second. And this may, if you watch, this is going to take a couple minutes to answer, and I hope I'm going to be clear enough. United Healthcare just invested $5 billion to build out their own virtual visit capability. $5 billion to give you a virtual visit about your earache for free if you're on their health plan. And then you ask, and by the way, I do want one, give me a second, I'll give you one more little tip X I think will help you too. What did they do that for? Because if they can keep you from going to the hospital or to a more expensive setting, they don't have to pay a claim against your life, okay? So the question that I often ask people, what are you struggling with? And when you go, let's say you're working on an insurance innovation or you're going to go work for an insurance company, go look for problems. Do exactly the thing your mother and dad told you not to do. Go ask people, what are you really struggling with? Can I sit with you for a day or for a week and shadow you and just watch you? Because if you just watch people work versus asking them what they do, but watch them work, and you listen to them grumble or you watch them throw their pen or say a bad word like I do occasionally, you'll start finding the friction that they deal with. And as an innovator, if you can design the friction out, you will find the next big thing. And so don't look for the next big thing, look for the big problem. Like what causes them worry in their P&L statement? What causes them worry on the income statement? Go sit with the actuaries. The math guys goes like, hey man, what do they have you guys looking at? And you'll go find where the real problems are in insurance by sitting in the actuarial room. So I don't have an answer to it, but I will say the next big thing is the next best question. So I'm going to give you a little tip. What's your name? Amir. All right, so play this out with me. It's a little kind of a professional polish thing, if that's okay. But it's this notion, have y'all heard about this discipline of the 5 whys? Anybody heard this? You ask why 5 times? Don't do that. Don't ask why. So if I ask you the question, tell me just how this makes you feel. Why did you pick Michigan State? When I ask the question why, what is the typical very first word someone says?
Because.
Okay. What is because?
A non-answer.
It's a non-answer, but it's an excuse or a defensive mechanism. If I were to ask him though, and so you don't want to ask why, because people feel interrogated. They figure this out in FBI interrogation, that if they ask somebody why they did something, they put their dukes up, they closed off, and they couldn't get to where they needed to be. And so change it to what? Amir, what was the criteria that caused you to choose Michigan State?
It is a great school.
And what was great about it?
Education-wise,
And what was good about the education piece for what you wanted to do?
it's like up there top, one of the best.
And if I were to say, what was good about the ranking for you? You see what I mean? Is I'm finding out the criteria and the thinking that he went through to get to where he was with his decision. If I ask him why and he says because, he's already defending his decision, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to put Amir in a defensive position. I'm trying to put him into a dialogue so I can learn what he needs me to learn for him. And so what's the thing you're struggling with versus why are you so frustrated? Like, hey man, what's driving you crazy? Right? And so frame it differently and you will discover the next big thing by asking what? What's going on around you? What are you concerned about? What do you think is going to cause you a problem in a year? You get them to talk about what would be bad about that problem. Well, it would cause this. Well, why? What's bad about that? And then they get to the reasoning of what they're really trying to solve for. And as a data scientist, you can pinpoint your solution. They'll think you're the most brilliant damn guy on the planet, but all you did was just empathetically ask questions versus put someone in fight mode. I'm telling you, that's a polish to the question the guy asked me, like, that's a polish that I learned from some mentors, is to change, because I like to ask questions, but frame them in a way that puts you at ease and puts us working together versus words that cause friction. You can interrogate, but you don't need to feel interrogated. It's actually a really, really important skill in business.
Thank you so much, Todd.
Thanks for having me.
This is
Hope it's useful for y'all though, because dang.
This is amazing. So I guess the question to this audience is, what are the top 3 things that you're going to take away from this conversation that happened here tonight? And if you have the top 3 things right off the top of your head, write them down now, and then go to Instagram and message us, and we would love to share those comments.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So
Actually.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Todd.
Thanks for having me. Great
Thank
question,
you for
by the way.
being here.
Thank you guys for
Thank
taking
you.
the time. You have school, you have life, you have friends, you have other things to do. I will tell you, you being here tonight, just looking to learn something, is already an indicator that you're in a great path of your career. Keep that up. That's a separator, by the way.
Yeah, curiosity.
Curiosity. It is a separator.
Great
And I'm hanging, so if y'all want